Any questions from the audience? We've got a guy here. Come on, anybody?
We have something here, Yvette.
Yeah. I've got
RK and Sadia spotted something. Can you tell us what it's RK?
She was asking for a name. Still haven't got a phone number for her. Still haven't got a phone number for her.
Say again?
Sadia, can I ask you to pick it up for us? To pick a stone up, because I can't see which one it might be. There's no stones, I should say, on the floor here.
A stone's been thrown?
Yeah, a stone. And what point did it happen, Sadia?
When she started saying, is anybody here?
When what?
When you were asking for his name, that's when the
So when you're asking for the name, this stone, which feels very cold, but it would do, but this floor, although it's concrete, is very clear apart from that. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Well, that's good.
And where did it come from? Above?
It sounds like it came from over there, like from behind, like in front. Like
So it kind of came from behind where I'm standing now. I was with the audience over that side.
Okay.
And I think there's nobody in front of us here. There's nobody in front. No. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any questions? We could possibly have a World War II. Yeah, when did you die? When did you die, please? When did you die? Give me a date, please, sir. I'm presuming you're a man. When did you die? 8. J. John and Miriam, it seems to keep going. I don't know if John and Miriam are sat there, but it seems to keep going over to the 8 and J, whatever that means. Is it something perhaps RAF talk? I don't know. Okay. Okay. Were you a flyer? Yes or no? Did you fly the planes? Yeah. Okay. How old are you? How old are you now? How old are you now? How old are you?
Yvette, sorry to interrupt. Another lady here, Rachel, is sensing every time you're asking for information, she's getting the name Arthur through very clearly. This lady
Okay,
here.
let's ask. Let's ask. Is your name Arthur? Yes or no? Is your name Arthur? Nothing? No response? What was that over there? Was that just movement of the crew? Yeah? Okay. Sounded like something being thrown. Steve? Someone knocked something, okay. Okay. Are you a man? Are you a man? Goodbye. Okay. Sure don't want to ask any questions? You're the shyest, but I wish my lot would be quite as you lot. Okay, one last question. Okay, do you mean us harm? Do you mean us harm? I'll ask again. Yeah. Do you mean us harm? Make it clear, please. Yes or no. Do you mean us harm? Yes. Okay. Are we in your space? Are we in your space? Was this your space? Okay. Were you a mechanic? Yes. Okay. Were you here during the 1940s? Okay. Just give us a name. Just your first name. Please. Just your first name. Come on. Give us your first name. He's very reluctant, isn't he, to give us his first name? No, we'll give it one last... And he's going to... Goodbye. Well, we've got some interesting stuff, but you always want more. Can I just say thank you very much indeed? Did you enjoy that? Yeah. That's a little bit different, wasn't it? Thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to a break now. Join us when I shall be joining the rest of my normal, rowdy, more noisy team. Back in a bit.
Hello and welcome back to Most Haunted Live. The investigation has begun right here on Living. We're at West Raynham, an abandoned RAF camp in Norfolk. It is absolutely freezing, but the atmosphere inside this hangar, once in full use, now disused, dilapidated, was intense. We began here with a Ouija board session, and our audience, and I thank them for it, came up with some amazing information. Some speculation maybe, but one concrete result. So this humble stone couldn't have come from the ceiling. There was nobody from the direction we think it came. Thank you to the people who spotted it, and by the way, they don't want it back. Not keen to have it back. Also, we got the sense from somebody in the audience of an aroma of old canvas. Fuel, petroleum was smelt, and somebody said, a lady suggested the first name of the person maybe trying to come through was Arthur. Somebody else at the back said, possibly, maybe more likely, A. Thorne. Our historians are analysing all the information, including the suggestion that those letters that came through were maybe map coordinates. All that is being looked at as the team prepare to embark on the investigation in one of tonight's locations. It is the Sergeant's Mess. Here's a little look inside it.
Occupying a lonely position amidst miles and miles of desolate East Anglian plains, the once hectic military hub of RAF West Raynham is now a crumbling, desolate shell, abandoned by the living, but not, it is said, by the dead. The Sergeant's Mess is the largest former residence on the base and is rumoured to house more than its fair share of unwanted paranormal lodgers, tenants who have outstayed their welcome, clinging to a lifelong lost. This disorientating maze of bedrooms, corridors and grand halls has witnessed much activity over the years, not least a sinister figure who was first glimpsed in the 1970s, peering from an upper story window. This entity has since gone on to terrify numerous staff members and visitors to the base. Blood-curdling screams are said to echo through the darkness when the building is empty, and the bar area in particular is associated with a hostile, dark presence. Perhaps these energies are connected to the horrors that transpired across the unforgiving Norfolk landscape centuries before the construction of this base. Whatever the source of the paranormal activity said to roam this imposing yet rotting structure, the Sergeant's Mess certainly poses a perilous prospect for tonight's most haunted investigation.
And that is where the team are heading tonight. Let's catch up now with our historians, John Callow and Miriam Cook, about so far what we've learnt tonight. Starting with you, John. HJ came through. Now, an audience member hypothesised that maybe it was a map coordinate. You have a different theory.
Well, it could be. I mean, it leaves it, you know, it's open to any number of hypotheses. But there is one thing. There was an aircraft, a Crusader, the F-8J, which saw a lot of service during the Cold War in Vietnam. And that particular Navy medium bomber was actually involved right the way through in the fighting, the high-altitude fighting in Vietnam, the strafing of the jungles, but also one of the squadrons was known as Satan's Kittens, which is an interesting thing maybe for the things in the ether tonight.
And 10 or 12 miles from where we are now is a massive American airbase.
That's
still.
right.
Lakenham is still only about, what, maybe 15 miles from here tonight. So that was the Cold War period then?
Yeah. So it became quite an important base during the Cold War, West Raynham. In fact, Cold War buildings that are here have been identified as being of national importance, strangely. Yeah, and during the 1976 to 1994, it was a training ground for Bloodhound missiles and Rapier missiles.
It's curious how the fact that King's Lynn, the biggest local town, is a Hanseatic port. And at the same time this was used to then oversee what was going on in Eastern Europe, not for trade, but because they were hostile power.
And it's how you project power as well, as you say. If you think of a medieval castle, then an airbase fulfills the same function. Castles were not just defensive, but it's where you launched attacks. So King's Lynn, place where Henry V, Edward III had their fleets, the Cinque Ports at the time of the 100 Years' War, is really not that different from the airbase. They're fulfilling the same roles, the same geopolitics.
And of course we're looking tonight in the Sergeant's Mess, which would have been, and it's unusual for people not outside any military background, that was a get-together for people. That was maybe speaking more to your training as a social historian. Yeah, so you would have had a lot of getting together, a lot of social activity on the base itself. I mean, you had women here as well as men. In fact, in 1940 or 1942, they increased the accommodation again, so you had the WAAF, a lot of women here as well, and women were very important in the war as well. In fact,
they found that women's voices were very good for radio transmissions, and even were trained, German-speaking women in the WAAF were trained to try and impersonate Luftwaffe, the radio commands there, to try and confuse them and stuff. So it was quite an important and interesting.
Thank you both for a moment of fascinating night in Prospect. Here's how you can get involved. Julian Clegg, master of all things interactive, has the details. Julian.